How did I come up with my framework? I've taken a ton of sales courses throughout the years, the 6 years I've been selling, and I still take courses every single day. So I've studied frameworks and the books of Jordan Belfort, which you might know as The Wolf of Wall Street, Jeremy Miner, the founder of NEPQ or 7th Level, Grant Cardone with his virtual courses, The ABCs of Selling, and Chris Voss's negotiation courses, as well as his groups. I've taken courses from various other sellers and businesses, but I always found that there was things that I liked that were my favorite, and there was things that didn't really work when I employed them. Taking all of that throughout the years, I've created this framework that I teach to my sellers now. And I'm always changing this last letter. The last letter, A, I am always changing it to E because I'm trying to figure out which is more pivotal when you're inside of a sale. So this isn't just a methodology for selling. This is what you can actually use inside of the sale. So C, collect information on the prospect or problems that they're having. L, learn what they have done up to this point to solve for problem X. O, observe how the problem is affecting your prospect. You want to see their body language, tonality, pace of words, see if they're sweating, see if their eyebrow and their mouth movements. When you say certain emotional trigger words, what are you getting from that? You need to observe that. S, solve with your solution. You solve their problems by utilizing your solution. At this point, this is a blend of consultative as well as coach selling. Now, A, answer buying questions and envelop into a guided process. This part is really important. This part is usually where you objective handle, but people get too much pressure on objective handling. You just need to answer buying questions, guys. That's it. So breaking it down even more, all right? Number one, C, right? Collect information about the prospect's problem. You need to collect information on the prospect's problems. Depending on what you are selling, the information needed varies from industry to industry, right? But this stays the same no matter what. Every prospect has this in common. They have a set of issues that they need help solving, hence why they are here in front of you right now. Focus on collecting information on the prospect and the problem first, and rapport will not be a needed focus. So much people focus on building rapport. I say build rapport in your solution. Don't build the rapport as a focus in your sell, which a lot of people do. They joke, they laugh, they want you to like them, but we don't give a fuck about that. Neither do they. 2, you need to learn what the prospect has done up to this point of meeting you to solve for X problem. No matter what you sell, whether you're selling cars, you're selling ideas, solutions, SaaS, whatever it is, every prospect has had a racetrack of thoughts, actions, or ideas, or a combo of all three sometimes, right? I thought about it, I did it, and I had another idea. Sometimes you have all three of those. You need to know, what does their ideal solution consist of? That's what we're learning about, right? Number 3, you need to observe how the set of problems are affecting your prospect. You must probe for future loss without change, as well as gauge how this is fatiguing. How much fatigue is this issue causing your prospect? Without big enough emotional triggers, it won't make sense for why they need to move forward. You won't have enough urgency from their end for why they should make a change today. Why should they sign now, right? And so without the urgency, without observing the triggers and taking account of those, it'll actually be harder to handle objections later, right? And so what you need to do is ask the question, how does X problem affect you? When X problem occurs, what happens to you? Observe, and you will see which questions you ask get the biggest emotional responses, which once you have those noted is when you know you have enough information to move on to S for your solution. Now, S, solve with your solution. What that means is that you need to plug in your solution, not in your words, not in what your product says, not in what it does. You need to plug it in their words, in their ideas, in their terms. Make it short, make it concise, get to the point, and plug in exactly what your prospect wants and how they want to do it, right? You need to plug in how they want to get it done. Most people lose the sale not because of what they say or how they said it. It's because they didn't bring it from the prospect's perspective. They brought it from their own perspective. Like you had mentioned earlier, Mr. John, you are looking to increase Y, but problem X is holding you back. So if I had a solution for problem X, would you be upset if I showed it to you? Would that upset you? Most people are going to say no. No, that doesn't upset me. I want to see it. No, that wouldn't upset me. Now the last one. The last one is critical. A. A is so critical because not only do we put so much pressure on objective handling and knowing every single word to every single objection, you're just not. It's not possible, dude. People come up with new objections every day. The universe just works like that. So that being said, answer buying questions, but you need to also envelop your prospect into a guided environment. Make them feel safe moving forward. And if you make them feel enveloped into a guided process where someone feels like you know what you're doing, you know what you're saying, you know the next steps, that's the only way you can close them in one call. When someone has questions and objections, is what sales trainers would call them. Usually, when people throw out an objection, this is the definition of an objection. It means that they absolutely don't want it. There's things that it doesn't work out for them, right? If someone says anything besides, okay, I'll buy it, sellers tend to think of it all in the same category as being objections. When the word itself, I object, means I'm not on board, I don't agree with this. If that's the case, then you have sold the prospect too much. If people say that, they can smell the sell. They can smell that you're not genuine. And you need to get them to acknowledge that you really do understand their set of problems. You really do understand why this is affecting them in that way and why they're trying to solve it for Y solution, right? They're trying to get X reward with Y solution. And so your prospect by the end of the call, if you make it to the end, usually has buying questions. They don't have objections. People take it as objections and they get mad, but really it was all just buying questions, right? Meaning as long as you can answer their buying questions and keep the sale moving forward, you're going to win. You're going to close it. No matter what. This is why I get mad at sales trainers all the time, because we focus on sales methodologies. And sales methodologies are just the sales process at an overview. This is when you're inside of the sale. Think about this. C.L.O.S.A. When you're inside of the sale, first I must collect information on the prospect. I need to learn what have they done up to this point to solve their problem. I need to observe how this problem is affecting my prospect by probing with probe questions, right? And then I need to solve their solution by plugging in mine, utilizing it in their words, their perspective, not mine. And then finally, answering their buying questions and making them feel like it's a guided process. That's it. As long as you do that, you will never really get objections, right? Now that we know what's the difference between objections and buying questions, most frameworks prepare people for objections, but in the irony of becoming and trying to prevent objections, they actually created objections. They created a selling environment. Why? Because most people are studying frameworks. Most people are buying the $10,000, $20,000 courses. And this right here isn't popular yet. 1 year, one day, it will be popular. This will be everywhere. And then we'll need to switch it again. The thing about frameworks is that a lot of people don't know that it's being done to them. Once they know that this is a process and this is how people sell now, and this becomes popular, we'll have to come up with a new one. But right now, the popular frameworks are Closer, Medic, things of that nature. Those are very popular. So when people know that you're doing that, they've been trained in that. They've seen the videos online of that. This takes consultative selling as well as personal coaching principles when you're pitching a client. This framework is meant to guide as well as remind sellers to focus on the metrics that are inside of a sell that truly guide them towards closing the deal in one call. That being said, why it works is because it is different from what a lot of people are learning. That's the only reason it works. A lot of people aren't being trained on this framework, but you are. You found the video, and I can even train you even more on this. I can show you how to do it step by step in the cell. This is just the overview. This is just the surface of it. There's even deeper levels to this, right? And so what this is training you to do is to take you from a perspective of pushing product and selling, and you're trying to create a foundation of trust by becoming a scientist, guys. You're becoming a scientist with this framework. You're becoming a scientist of the client's issues, leading to authority forming through our discovery process. By probing in the observe, by probing with those questions, you build authority. By doing all of this up to this point, this is where authority gets created, is through this. You don't need credibility to make this work. You don't need a big business name for this to work. You can do this without being overly pushy. You can utilize this without using outdated sales tactics. That's why I made this. So the plan for implementing the C.L.O.S.A framework is that you need to focus on building empathy. You need to focus on your discovery process. You need to focus on asking the right questions. Ask good questions. The only way that this framework works is if you put the work into making your process more educational, more friendly, and making it entertaining. Make it fun. If you make the process fun and people really feel like they're on some groundbreaking discoveries, then people are going to want to do it with you. Why? Because it's interesting. People give attention to what's interesting. Make it interesting. If you don't make it interesting, then it's hard to say that they're going to want to work with you. People get interested by what grabs their attention. So the more you can grab their attention of what we're doing here is groundbreaking, you're going to close it no matter what. So that being said, I'm going to create a course about this. I'm going to create a course about C.L.O.S.A, and I'm going to put it inside of my school community. You can take the course for free. There's going to be a paid version where I actually mentor you myself. I mentor you myself on the C.L.O.S.A framework. We get on calls together. I show you how to do it. I give you sales calls and sales tips on your calls of how to implement it, right? And so if you like this, right, go see the school class. Go see my school course on this when it comes out, because this is going to become popular in a few months to a few years, and I'll need to switch it again. So be one of the few to know it now so that you're getting tons of sales sooner than later. That being said, I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace.